Have you ever just scrolled through your Steam library, looked through all of these new games you might have, and thought, wow, a lot of these new games that have been coming out recently have been kinda shit, only to continue scrolling and eventually end up booting up some old game that came out 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 years ago, and have a much better time playing that. Well, today I'm dropping a little bit of a nostalgia nuke on myself. I'm going to be playing a game I bet you can't guess what it is. Go, I'll give you 2 seconds right now. Yeah, you didn't guess what it was. I'm playing PlayStation Home today. Some of you might not even know what PlayStation Home is, or was, I guess. It was pretty much a social hub that allowed people on the PlayStation Network back in the PS3 days to join into these unique, interesting spaces that were usually themed off of PlayStation games that were coming out at the time. And you can have your little avatar here, and you can chat with people with text chat, and you can play mini games with them. But of course, nothing can last forever. PlayStation Home servers were officially shut down in 2015. However, I'm currently able to experience it due to a community effort through the RPCS3 PS3 emulator, where the community has actually managed to gather up these files of PlayStation Home and make it playable through the emulator itself, and with having online functionality. So in theory, you could actually meet up with people in this version of the game. And as you've probably noticed by the title of this video, the reason that I'm playing this today is because I'm going to be talking about the Stop Killing Games initiative. Now, a brief bit of history on this initiative itself, just so if you don't already know what it is. I mean, it's kind of been blowing up over the past week or so on the internet. But anyway, essentially there was this game called The Crew that came out, I don't know, a while ago, released by Ubisoft. It was like a car racing game, you know, drive around, race cars, and it was like an online thing where you couldn't play it without being online, even though it did have very single-player friendly content in the game. And essentially what ended up happening is eventually Ubisoft shut down the servers for The Crew, and you were no longer able to play the game at all. No single player, no nothing. Because the game was built around that online functionality, once the servers were taken down, the game was essentially dead. You could not play it anymore. And that core concept is what this initiative aims to fight against. And so the Stop Killing Games movement itself was started by somebody called Ross Scott in response to that whole The Crew situation that I just mentioned. And at the core of this movement, it aims to start a discussion about the legality of developers being able to make these live service games and then being able to charge a set fee to buy the game from the consumer, and then having the ability to just at any moment, whenever they decide the game's done, to just shut the servers down and make the game unplayable to those people who paid that fee to play the game. When a consumer buys a game, they should be able to know whether they're actually buying a game that they will be able to purchase and play for an indefinite period of time, or whether they are buying a subscription or renting a game that at any moment can be turned offline and where they can no longer play it regardless of the fact that they've paid for it. So pretty much suggesting that developers need to be transparent with what the end of life plan is for these games. Are they going to be indefinitely online? And if they are, then you can continue selling them the way you are. And if you believe they will not be indefinite and eventually you will be shutting them down, you can't market them the same way that you would market a regular video game. You would need to market them in a way where the consumer is very aware that eventually this game will be just removed. And that is the core of this initiative. Now, this initiative was launched early in 2024 actually, so it's not something necessarily new, but the discussion around it recently has really erupted, and the awareness for it has kind of grown because of a couple of recent events that we're going to talk about real quick. So pretty much there's this streamer called Pirate Software. You may or may not have heard of him. He initially responded to this movement back in 2024, I believe through the form of a YouTube video, expressing his disagreement with the concept as a whole. He was extremely adamant that if he had the chance to sign this petition, he absolutely would not. He was pretty much saying that the initiative's goals were, overly broad, unrealistic, and that it would essentially be harmful for the developers. He also tried to make the argument that it's not actually a way of preserving games. Most people don't really agree with that, me included. I mean, I think any way that you can continue playing a game even after it's been left behind by the development team or the servers, any way for you to be able to open that up again and play it is at least a way of preservation. It might not be to the same extent that the game was originally intended to be played, but it's better than nothing. Anyway, that response from Pirate Software was back in 2024, and there wasn't really much pushback against it from Ross himself. And as 2024 continued and we sort of moved into 2025, this petition, it was getting attention, people were signing the petition, but it wasn't getting as much attention as it needed. It needs 1 million signatures within a year. And it kind of stagnated somewhere around 500k, I believe, or maybe a little less than 500k signatures. And it really did seem like this petition was not going to go through. And so what Ross did is Ross came out, made a video, and he talked about a few reasons that he thought that might have been the case. One of those being the Pirate Software situation of him sort of fighting against the movement and getting people to disagree with it. He pointed out that it was his belief Pirate Software was misrepresenting the movement, and so this video that Scott released talking about all this just recently got a lot of traction. And this was also coming off a recent controversy with Pirate Software about a whole World of Warcraft situation, which I'm not going to go into detail about. You can look it up if you want. But pretty much, there are lots of people online who are not big fans of Pirate Software because of the way that he sort of places himself on like a pedestal above others, which is generally just not really a very likable trait of a person, to kind of elevate yourself above people like that. Anyway, a lot of people after that whole World of Warcraft debacle were already pretty iffy on Pirate Software. And so now with this, what has happened in response to Ross's sort of summary about the Stop Killing Games movement and how he believes it's not gonna come through, and how he believes Pirate Software misrepresented it last year. Basically, it got a lot of traction, and Pirate Software responded to that. And what he pretty much did is he doubled down on everything that he originally said about the movement. He straight up refused to acknowledge misrepresenting anything about the movement at all. And this whole situation, it actually reignited the Stop Killing Games movement to the point where now it seems like it is going to be passed. The petition is being signed by so many people. It only has until the end of this month, until the end of July, for the million to be signed. But remember, I said it was stagnant at about 500k-ish after this whole situation. Now, currently, at the time of recording this, it is at like 930,000. So I guess in a way, somewhat ironically, Pirate Software's deep disagreement with this initiative has reignited it, and seems like it's actually, the petitions are going to be signed. It's going to hit 1 million, without a doubt. Okay, so at the time of recording this video, I've just looked it up. Here you go, I'll show it to the camera. Stop Killing Games initiative is currently sitting at 930,000 signatures, and it is growing quickly. Actually, correction, this is me from the future. The petition has officially surpassed 1 million signatures. But it's still important for people to keep signing it, because it shows how important the issue is, and also extra signatures can account for any that may come up as invalid. And don't forget, boys, credit where credit's due. Pirate Software, brother, we couldn't have done it without you. Huge thanks to you, man. It's happening, boys. The internet did it. We brought it back. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video. And so I've decided to make this video kind of to share my opinion on the topic, and kind of as a call to action to help get as many people as possible to sign this thing. And it's actually been great seeing the online gaming community coming together in the past few days and collectively supporting this cause. I know that Moist Critical made a video on it, Some Ordinary Gamers, Jacksepticeye talked about it, PewDiePie mentioned it. I think even Asmongold shouted it out like on his stream and encouraged people to go and sign it. And so here I am, standing with the gamers, boys and girls. Let's get as many people as possible to sign this thing. Now keep in mind, you can only sign this if you live in the EU. There is another petition for the UK specifically, which you can also sign if you're in the UK. That's technically a separate thing. But even if you're not in the EU, you can still help out through social media, through Reddit, through Discord. You have some connections, people who live in EU countries. You can help encourage them to sign this thing so that we can at least get the governments of these countries to start these discussions about the issue and hopefully start making some progress on the matter. And you might think, well, I don't live in the EU, so it doesn't affect me, but the reality is, so many modern games are made in EU countries. A very large portion of the gaming industry is based there. If this change happens, in those countries, it will guarantee to spill over to the rest of the places in the world where the gaming industry also thrives, including the United States, including, Australia. People want the right to own their games. People want to buy something and know that regardless of what happens in the future, they will be able to boot up that game and play it. It might not be the same game that it was when they first played it, when it was popular, when it was in its prime, but they can still boot it up and they can still experience in part what that game was, as opposed to just letting it die and become a lost part of history that we can never really look back on unless we watch old YouTube videos or things like that. I can't think of anyone I know who would be against the preservation of games and against having this safety net that lets you know as a consumer you don't need to worry about losing your game that you paid money for. And of course, if developers want to continue making these live service games that are going to shut down within a few years' time, then they can go ahead and do that, but they need to be transparent and let the consumers know, hey, the thing you're buying, we can take it away from you whenever we feel like it, so just keep that in mind. And yes, of course, knowing that as a consumer, it's going to hurt the sales of a lot of these games. But if that's the way that these gaming corporations want to treat their consumers, then they are going to have to deal with the consequences of that. Instead of being able to creep around it and making people believe they're buying a product that's going to last indefinitely. And of course, it's a great benefit to these corporations if they can continue on the way they've been doing. Because if you think about it from their perspective, right, corporate greed has really been poisoning the game industry in the way that they're always trying to sell games for more while saving as much money making them as possible, recycling as much as possible, essentially min-maxing, I guess you could say. And as a result, us the consumers arguably have been getting worse and worse games over the years. And for now, we're still early days. It's not all bad yet because we're still at a point where we have a lot of old games that we can go back and play easily. When it comes to retro games, they can easily be emulated. When it comes to a lot of older console games, you can just put the old disc in and you can just play the game on your own, single player, no worries. But if we keep following this trajectory and we keep getting more and more companies moving to this live service model, then as we continue, more and more of the games are going to be killed eventually at some point in their lifespan where you're not going to be able to go back and play them again. And from the corporate perspective, well, this is great news because this means we can continue to make shittier and shittier games, and people will have to play them because they won't have the choice to go back and play the old ones because we shut them all down. Let's look at it this way. Let's use Rockstar Games as an example here. Now, don't get me wrong. I have faith in Rockstar Games that GTA 6's online multiplayer is going to be good and is going to at least meet the same standard or maybe even surpass what GTA Online was. But consider this, GTA Online, it's been going strong for over 10 years now? It's made an unfathomable amount of money. When GTA 6 comes out, it's going to need to have its, I guess it could be continuation of GTA Online, or it could even be marketed as its own separate thing, GTA Online 2, kind of a shitty name, but something along those lines. And looking at all these past practices we've been talking about with the whole live service model and all that, in theory what could happen is Rockstar Games makes this GTA Online 2 for GTA 6 and they sunset or shut down GTA Online, the original GTA Online, and they pressure everyone to convert their accounts or to transfer their social club data, whatever, to the next game, to GTA Online 2, and they give a date where they're going to just basically shut down GTA Online servers, and from that point there will be no way anymore to play GTA Online. Now, obviously you can make the argument, well, GTA 5 is a single player game too. You can still play the campaign of GTA 5 and have a fully functional game. Yes, but at this point, I think it's fair you could make the argument GTA Online is basically its own game, separate from GTA 5 at this point, a completely different experience, not the same at all. The same assets, the same map, some of the same characters, but gameplay-wise, it is completely separated from the campaign. And so this experience of GTA Online, in this case where they shut it down, would pretty much be lost forever. You wouldn't be able to play it anymore, but through this initiative, a situation like that could be avoided with future games because you would need to make clear from the point of selling the game what your end of life plans are. Are you going to just shut it down and not allow people to play it anymore? Or are you going to hand off the responsibility of hosting the servers, of being able to play online? Are you going to hand that off to the community in a way where they can keep it running and people can still enjoy the game, but you can still move on to your next thing? Now, obviously, this runs a risk of, well, what if our new game is shit and everyone continues playing the old game? Well, I've got news for you. You're gonna have to make a not shit game so that people actually play it. Imagine that. Anyway guys, I think I've rambled on long enough about this. Please have a look in the description. I will leave the link to the petition. If you are in the EU, you live in an EU country, and you're a gamer, and you care about this, please go to the link, sign the petition. I think it only takes about 30 seconds. I wouldn't know because I'm in Australia and I can't sign it myself, but the results of it will affect me, it'll affect all my friends, it'll affect the entire gaming community. And I know I don't have the biggest audience, I'm still a pretty small YouTube channel, but I want to make as much of an impact as I can because this is an issue that I genuinely care about. Video games have been such an important part of my life growing up, and I want to do as much as I can with what I have to contribute to this cause because I believe it will genuinely help improve the gaming industry and improve the consumer's experience and just help us all out overall. Anyway, thanks for listening to my rambling, guys. I suppose I will catch you in whatever next video I happen to be uploading. But until then, goodbye.